Naval Base Ventura County has about 20,000 people who work there. So based upon Wikipedia and obviously check the numbers, but they say that's the largest employer in Ventura County. So a lot of people commute to that area. A lot of people also commute from the Oxnard area to Ventura or to Santa Barbara along that corridor. So again, that's just I want to bring that to your attention. I also provide a doc that I found on Department of Transportation that has the business case analysis of it. And I was surprised by the numbers. They say it costs $3,000 per mile. That seems really low, but nonetheless, there's lots of data out there to support its use, and thanks for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wilkinson. We'll make sure, Roxana, if we don't have sufficient copies for all the commissioners, can we make sure we email it out to all the commissioners afterwards? So we will all have them. All right. Thank you very much. Next up will be Tracy Stewart.
Save mine for 8G, please.
For 8G.
Yes.
For the consent calendar.
For the Santa Paula branch line, I'd like to speak before that. Is that all right? That's what I did last month.
I'm just looking at at the docket right now. No, we're going to take consent very quickly after this, so I think I would prefer that you go ahead and make your comments now on 8G, please. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioner and members. The rail cars are still in my neighborhood. That being said, I have questions. Last month, Mr. Erickson shared that the partnership between the Ventura County Transportation Commission and Sierra Northern Railway is working, and that Ms. Fagan gave SNR a glowing report as partners with VCTC. Humor me a minute while I define the word partnership. It is two entities working together. As partners, VCTC should be able to ask SNR to move the rail cars out of sight, shorten their rail bike route, move the rail cars, and everyone's happy. However, it would appear that that ask is too scary for VCTC. I fail to see this as a partnership. What I do see is VCTC allowing SNR to call the shots. Since SNR came into our community, you have allowed them to do whatever they like with little to no accountability. Case in point, SNR is running roughshod in our community, cutting and changing locks on ranchers' gates, putting up barricades and blocking ranchers from property, starting the rail bike operation without any notice to the landowners whose property they're traversing through, and making roughly $30,000 a month on unsightly railcar storage in our beautiful agricultural area. This is what's really happening in our neighborhood. I ask you, are these the kind of partners you want? VCTC, you are solely responsible for where we are today with SNR. Your decision to enter into a working agreement with the company who is no stranger to legal and community battles should have been your first red flag. That just may be where the company, where you went wrong with the company to become entangled with. Lastly, at last month's commission meeting, it was stated that VCTC will come and present to our communities regarding the Santa Paula branch line and SNR's operations. When can we expect that meeting to happen? I have heard nothing about a plan of a meeting going forward in that. That's all I have to say today, but as you can see, I am very heated about this topic, and I'm not going to go away about it. I don't think this is fair. If this were happening in Thousand Oaks, people wouldn't stand for it, but because we're a small little rural agricultural town in Fillmore, we're treated like the redheaded stepchild, and I'm not going to stand for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Susan King.
Good morning. I'm also
Previous-
speaking
She
about
did-
the railway, and I think the tone here is not beyond asking. It's time for tough questions. This isn't just about the 100 railway cars that litter our neighborhood. It's about the desecration of our beautiful Santa Clara Valley and what could happen to one of Fillmore as a best small town. We want to know as neighbors how much money Ventura County is getting from this agreement and just where that money is going. We want to know how much Sierra Northern is getting to store each of these ugly rail cars in our neighborhood. If it's $4 a day, that's $400 for the 100 cars. And we wonder how much money the SNR is going to make if they can store 1,000 cars, and they have room to do that. We don't know how you can find renting the rail tracks in our valley for commercial rail car storage is not a violation of the county anti-graffiti law, the AE zoning, the Ventura County General Plan, and the SOAR agreement, which voters have talked to you about twice. We want to know how each member of your commission voted on this agreement. We hear that you are paying $741,000 to fund a consultant on the railway repair. We don't know if that's true, but we're about ready to approach Julia Brownlee and ask, why are we repairing a bridge which is only going to support a nuisance tourist railway and an ugly commercial rail car parking lot? We wonder how each of one of you are going to feel when the first person dies in an ambulance on Highway 126, which was backed up 2 miles last weekend. Right now, those rail cars are interrupting our police, fire, and ambulance 8 times a day. And this is for the next 35 years. We want to know if any of you would want to buy a home, start a business, or move into a community surrounded by sitting old rail cars with obscene language, ugly drawings, and which will be relatively permanent. And we want to know how the local citizens were asked about that. We think that you've signed a disastrous agreement, and we think it's going to affect us forever. And what we're going to say to you is, if you can't change this, if you won't change this, why should we allow any of you to keep your taxpayer-funded appointments? Thank you. Please hear us.
Thank you, Ms. King. Our next speaker is Kathy Liu.
I'd like to submit this letter.
That's fine. Please give it to Mr. Erickson. He'll give it to the clerk. Thank you. Ms. Liu?
Good morning. I don't have a prepared statement, but when the rail cars, not to be redundant, I'm going to follow up on what these two ladies have said. When the rail cars first showed up, I emailed Martin, I emailed Kelly Long, our city council members, and just gave them I live on Old Telegraph Road where they are stored, and have lived there almost 30 years. So my living room, porch, kitchen, front-facing bedrooms look out at the rail cars every day. So it's not just a complaint that I'm driving by them. However, I have worked closely with Matthew Boardman from the train cars. I've been in contact with him, and I do want to say to his credit, he responded to all my phone calls, even when he couldn't move them, but he did move them in time for my son's wedding, which I believe was a great statement saying that he is willing to work with our community when, and we understand that supposedly they're there temporarily until the bridge is fixed, but to us that see them every day, that's not really an answer, knowing how long it could take to repair that bridge. We're being asked to look at them out our windows. So though they've been moved from in front of my home, there are other homes there. That's a residential street as well as a community path in and out of Fillmore. So our view was greatly changed, and the pictures that I sent to Martin to show that view before the trains were placed and after the trains were placed is shocking. So when you have to look at them from every window of your home, it's completely different than even just complaining that I'm driving by them. And I was worried that if I needed to sell my home, I wasn't looking to sell my home, but even if I was planning to in the next year, anybody who drove down our street would be driving through this lovely valley and then suddenly see this almost mile-long stretch of graffiti, would turn around and go home. So our property values, to me, have truly declined. The only solution that I've heard, and there is a solution, because I walk that path all the time, and I did hear, I believe Tracy mentioned that if the rail cars that already have about an 8-mile stretch, I believe, from Santa Paula to Fillmore, just turned around just a little bit west of where they're turning, there's plenty of space just west of our home, west of 7th Street, if you would come see it, to store the rail cars out of sight, because at that point they go inland and they're behind an orchard. So there is a solution, and it's not a difficult one. That would appease the community and store them temporarily until they could fix the bridge and store them in a more permanent spot. I just wanted to give the perspective from somebody who has had to look at them for 2 months. Now they've moved from in front of my home, and I feel like I've got freedom again because I can sit on my porch and look at my view. So I invite you out there. Please come take it out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kristen Dekas?
Good morning, members of the commission. I am here for a little show and tell. For Letitia Austin, our government relations manager, will put this up, but we are the recipients of an $80 million grant. Martin joined me yesterday at Long Beach to receive this check from our great governor and the Secretary Tokes Omashakin from Caltrans. And I'm here sharing this for a couple of reasons. One, the collaboration and the support of this commission made this happen. Our $10 million CMAQ grant leveraged our application and enabled us to secure this type of funding for our project. Martin, I won't steal your thunder, but there's more to announce, but collectively between our two agencies, about $200 million is coming to our county. We called our project PACE, which stood for Port Action Climate Environmental Development Project. And what's truly exciting about this is that the money that we're investing in this project is all about transitioning to a zero-emission economy. And so we've put in projects such as fuel cell technology, so when we plug in containers on dock, they'll be running on green hydrogen. We asked for electrification. We asked for a street sweeper to clean our docks, and it runs on electricity, and so we'll keep our water clean, our ocean clean, and we'll keep our air clean. So we just have a number of projects, and if anyone from Caltrans is here, please share the message. We're so thrilled to have this funding come to our community. 95% of the people that work at the port live in Ventura County, and they'll be the benefactors of the job creation and the green job creation that comes with these projects. We also have a project labor agreement, so when we go into construction, we'll see our trades be the benefactors of this tremendous funding that's coming into our community. So I just am here to thank you, congratulate you for making things like this happen for our county. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I received Ms. King, I've received your letter, so I will provide it to Roxana, and Roxana, I would ask you to duplicate it and send it out to all the commissioners. So we'll have that. In addition to Mr. Wilkinson's submission as well, if you could send that out to everybody. All right, that's it for speaker cards. Do I have any other members of the public who wish to address the commission under public comments? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and go to the next item on the agenda, which is the Caltrans report. Mr. Erickson, did you want to be heard on that?
No, there won't be a Caltrans report this month because Commissioner Roberts is not
Is away.
here.
Okay, all right, very well. All right, item 6, Commissioner Executive Director reports. Do we have any reports from any commissioners? Commissioner Lopez.
I don't think this one works, but Mr. Erickson, I'm aware that staff has been going out to present the cities here locally to talk about the tie study, so just wanted to kind of ping that if there's an update that we can get at some point on the status of the outreach and when we might hear back on that.
Sure, we have been going to each of the cities and making presentations, getting, I think, more valuable input on the ties study, and we will be coming back with an update shortly, and probably at the September or October meeting, once we have, I think, are coming to a final, I'd say, solution on that. It's been a good process, and especially with the state funding situation by then, by knowing what that is going to look like over the hopefully next few weeks with more finality. But we will be coming back on that.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Interim Chair. I just, you know, as a board member of Gold Coast, I wanted to make sure everybody was aware that Gold Coast is seeing a supervisor strike right now. It started on July 1st. Our supervisors do not have a current contract. Of course, negotiations are ongoing, and our hope is that we can resolve them quickly. If we do not, it is going to impact our operations. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew what was going on with that. Thank you, Mr. Tremblay.
Thanks, Commissioner Johnson. Any other commissioner comments? I have just a very quick recitation. I attended the American Public Transit Association Rail Conference last month in Pittsburgh, and principally focused on those workshops dealing with transit public safety and transit security, particularly from the standpoint of employees, and basically strengthening transit worker assault prevention and response items. So it was a helpful conference, and particularly in that respect, so I appreciated being able to go. Of course, having my hat on relative to Metrolink. All right. Without objection, then let's go to the Executive Director report.
Thank you, Immediate Past Chair Tremblay, members of the Commission. Good morning. Happy July, beginning of the new fiscal year, July. I have a brief Executive Director's report for you today just to underscore some of the, I think, the good news that I've been sharing over especially the past month and the past few weeks. As Kristen Deck has noted, this has certainly been a wonderful time for grants for Ventura County, nearly $200 million when you include the $75 million approximately that we just found out we received from the California Transportation Commission Solutions for Congested Corridors on June 28th, and then yesterday's announcement, which included another $15 million for the Rice and Fifth grade crossing. So that was a pleasant surprise to hear about that funding, and of course the nearly $80 million for the Port of Hueneme. I think it underscores the importance of partnerships that we talked about during our strategic planning process, and that's embedded in our adopted strategic plan since April. And the port is a great example of one of our strategic partners, along with many others: Gold Coast, Metrolink, all the cities, and the county. So I'm just very grateful for my team for the efforts they put into these grants. It was a lot of work, and many of them spent a lot of time on this, among the other things we are doing. Next slide. As you probably all know, we had a harrowing incident last week on June 28th when an Amtrak Pacific Surfliner train derailed just outside of Moore Park. And I know Commissioner Enegren and I were, I think you might have been one of the first on the scene there. This is a picture of some of the VCTC intercity buses that came and helped move passengers from the 200 passengers who were on the train to a reunification center in Moore Park. Thankfully, as you know from the news reports, there were no serious injuries, which is really extremely grateful that that was the case, as it could have been far more serious. I also want to acknowledge Simi Valley Transit, Gold Coast Transit, really all the transit operators who came together in this time, and Matt Miller of our transit department, of Claire Grasty's team, who kind of served as coordinator on the ground because I was in Sacramento and we had other staff on vacation. But it does underscore the serious need for rail safety that we all know in all our communities and all along the rail line. And hopefully we won't see an incident like this for a while, but again, it could have been far worse. And with that, my Executive Director's report is completed.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Any questions for Mr. Erickson? I just want to pay a particular compliment to staff on several different fronts. Probably best for me to be succinct and just say ditto, but particularly with respect to the derailment issue and with respect to the grants and the funds coming to VCTC for these transit projects. That doesn't happen by itself. It comes about with a great deal of work by VCTC staff, so I really want to applaud you for that. All right, moving on to, are there any additions or revisions to the agenda?
Immediate past Chair Tremblay, I have one revision to the agenda. It is on the consent agenda, item 8L. We need to correct the amount that's in the recommendation that currently reads 42,210, needs to be changed to 41,210. There was an error there of adding an extra $1,000, so that needs to be changed in the recommendation and in the body of the report. Other than that, there are no changes to the agenda.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Erickson. With that, do I have a motion to approve? First of all, are there any items that anybody needs to pull from consent? All right. With that, can I hear a motion with respect to consent as revised with respect to 8L?
So moved.
Second.
All right. We have a motion by Commissioner Parvin, a second by Commissioner Judge. I believe we've got to do roll call on this, right, Mr. Mattis, because we have Commissioner Chavez on the line. Roxana, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Brogy? Yes. Commissioner Chavez?
Aye.
Commissioner Crosswhite?
Yes.
Commissioner Enegren?
Yes.
Commissioner Francina?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Judge?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez? Yes. Commissioner McQueen-Lejeune?
Yes.
Commissioner Parvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Tremblay?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, that,
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner White?
Oh, yes.
oops, okay. We got everybody? Very good.
Thank you.
Record will reflect that that item was adopted unanimously. We will then move on to item 9, the legislative update, and I believe Ms. Peshka, you're up to bat.
Yes, thank you, immediate past Chair Tremblay, and good morning, Commissioners.
You know, that's really a mouthful. Why don't
It
you just
really
say
is.
Commissioner Tremblay is just fine, thank you. Okay.
I'm Darren Peshka, if you want a mouthful. I'm the Program Manager of Government and Community Relations here at VCTC. Today I have updates about the state budget as it relates to transportation. The past few weeks in Sacramento have been dedicated to budget negotiations between the legislature and Governor Newsom. And as I'm sure you're all aware, the state budget process is quite complicated. I think the author of a recent news piece captured it best when she wrote, and I'm paraphrasing, "When it comes to California budget actions, there's always something more." So I thought that was pretty accurate. In June, the legislature announced that it had passed a budget meeting its constitutional deadline. And then the governor and the legislature also announced that they had reached a budget agreement that, among other things, would provide additional funding for transportation. The governor signed what's known as the interim budget on June 27th, and then there's a second budget bill, which is sometimes referred to as the Budget Bill Junior, that makes expenditure amendments to that approved budget. In addition, I'll be touching on a transportation budget trailer bill, which lays out accountability measures and extends regulatory relief for transit agencies. These budget measures, once they're approved, will provide roughly $5.1 billion in previously appropriated and new funding to transit programs over the next several years. In January, the governor had proposed reductions in funding for certain transportation programs, and the budget agreement restores much of that funding, including $2 billion for the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program, which is known as TIRSIP, and $200 million for the Active Transportation Program. The budget agreement also creates a zero-emission transit capital program, and this funding is proposed for zero-emission vehicles and fueling infrastructure. Over the past several months, transit agencies across the state have expressed concern about having enough funding for operations. In response to these concerns, the budget agreement allows flexibility for transit agencies to use 100% of funding received through these programs for operations. The TIRSIP funding would flow to regional transportation planning agencies through a population-based formula, and the zero-emission vehicle funding would flow to RTPAs through a formula based on population and revenue. The transportation budget trailer bill primarily would do three things. It would institute accountability and reform requirements for agencies seeking funding from the programs approved in the 2023 budget. It would extend regulatory relief measures to transit agencies during the pandemic, including suspension of financial penalties for failure to meet fare box recovery requirements. And these relief measures would extend through fiscal year 2025-26. And finally, the budget trailer bill would require the formation of a state-level transit transformation task force, another mouthful, and the goal of that task force would be to increase ridership and to improve the rider experience. The accountability requirements that agencies would have to meet to receive funding are quite extensive, so I won't go through them all today. In general, the bill would require that regional transportation planning agencies submit short and long-term regional financial plans that are consistent with guidelines that are adopted by the State Transportation Agency. For this fiscal year, for example, a plan would have to be submitted and approved by the State Transportation Agency by December 31st. The accountability requirements would extend to funding requested from these two programs for the next several fiscal years, regardless of whether an agency is seeking the funding for capital or operations. Both the Budget Bill Junior and the Transportation Budget Trailer Bill have been sent to the governor for his signature and are ready to be signed. These are both designated as urgency bills, so they would take effect as soon as they're signed, and it's anticipated that they will be signed soon. That concludes my presentation for this morning, and I'm happy to take any questions that the commission might have.
Thank you, Ms. Peszka. Do commissioners have any questions for Ms. Peszka? Any comments on this item? All right, hearing none. Thank you. That's a receive and file, so without objection, the item will be received and filed. Our next item up is item 10, a rideshare update. And Ms. Grasty, I think you're up to the plate.
Good morning, commissioners. Since we have many new commissioners, we want to give an overview and update of our rideshare program. So a little bit about what it is. The program aims to reduce single occupancy vehicles through such modes as carpooling, vanpooling, biking, transit options, or walking. We are part of a regional rideshare collective with the counties of Los Angeles, Orange County, San Bernardino, and Riverside. We partner with them on a ride matching database for all commuters throughout these counties. We also work with them on outreach and marketing efforts, and then on just kind of other programs and coordination. But we also have partnered with Santa Barbara County and San Luis Obispo County, particularly on some teleworking resources during the pandemic. So we kind of work with everyone to improve our programs and make some economies, especially since we are such a small county in comparison to the larger LA region. We work with them especially on things like Bike to Work Week, Rideshare Week, and as well as we've done some webinars and things like that throughout the region. So a big part of the rideshare program is the outreach component. Really getting the word out there on, trying other modes of transportation, including active modes. So we have a big Bike to Work Week campaign, really a Bike Month campaign it's transitioned to. Rideshare Week, as I mentioned, many teleworking resources that we've updated since the pandemic. But also, since biking has become more popular as a result of the pandemic, we've done many bike campaigns since, and we'll be continuing our bike safety campaign. Another aspect of the program is our partnership with Calvans. So we are a part of the JPA, and so they provide van pools throughout our county and many other counties throughout California. Of course, Commissioner White serves on this board, and Commissioner Johnson as well. This is a great program and really has the agricultural van ridership has really increased significantly since the pandemic, whereas the traditional van pools really have not come back, ones that go to work sites or such. Ride sharing, carpooling has not really seen the kind of recovery that really the agricultural van pools are. So it's a very important resource for our county and for many counties throughout California. They've also been partnering with different organizations to increase van pooling, and then they've also been a part of 2 different affordable housing AHSC grants, Sustainable Communities grants, that providing van pools, vans for a site in Ventura and one in Oxnard. We've, as I mentioned, have a big focus on biking. In Ventura County, there is an extensive bike lane network, including over 550 miles of bike lanes, and 480 of those are Class 1 or Class 2. There are many bike repair stations throughout the county that help to assist bikers as well. Recently, Amanda's group has finished a bike-friendly for new bike beginners map, in addition to the bike trail map that we have as well. And the focus really is on people who are newer to biking or biking with families. It has great safety tips and good maps. We've also been emphasizing that bikes can be taken on transit to help, elongate a trip that may be too long for just a bike commute. So, most buses in the county can accommodate up to 3 bikes. The VCTC buses can accommodate more. The Amtrak trains and the Metrolink trains also have room for bikes. So we've been really trying to push that message as well. Mobility as a Service, or MOS, was one of the items, the goals that came out of the strategic planning session. Sorry, that is a little small to read, but really the goal is to help support the declining ridership and changing people's mobility patterns. So how MOS programs work where they're successful otherwise is generally integrating fare, transit planning or trip planning and fare purchasing in one app for different modes of transit, and also bike sharing and things like scooters and stuff. So since the strategic planning session, we've developed kind of a concept that is along those lines of combining other different types of trip planning, with the goal of going beyond just transit and driving trip planning, including things like carpooling and van pooling, trip planning as well, and also integrating other fare payment options, including open payments. So the goal is to increase transit ridership, improve air quality, reduce congestion, and just provide better route planning options. We expect the program would cost about $1 million, and we are, I think as a countywide organization with strong partnerships are in a good position to do this. I also want to highlight our Guaranteed Ride Home program that I think is a really great program that helps give some peace of mind to people who are ride sharing, whether carpooling, van pooling, or transit users, bikers. So what this program does is provide an emergency free ride home to people who have some sort of emergency. So say you're carpooling and you have a mechanical issue, or your driver has an emergency and has to return home, and now you have to find a different way home, or your train trip was canceled or something like that. This program gives you an opportunity to take a trip home that VCTC pays for. So in 2021, we made updates to the program that now allows you to use a TNC, so you can use Uber or Lyft or a taxi to come home. So before you had to get a voucher for it, take the voucher and give it to the provider, and you couldn't use Uber or Lyft. And so now you can do it. It's on a reimbursement basis. It's a lot easier for people to use. Thus far, we've been really working with the employers and employee transportation coordinators, and in the upcoming fiscal year, we're really looking to market the program broadly to the community at large. And so we're excited about that. I think it's a great program that, would be great for a community to know more about and give them a little more peace of mind. We also provide support to employers through all the major employers who have to comply with the APCD Rule 211. So our ride matching database allows for surveying. We have a consultant, ITS, who supports them through this process and makes their surveying easier, also gives us good data as well. And so we also, as part of that, provide resources and webinars to do that, and then they're able to use the ride matching database to kind of do a lot of data, collect data themselves that they can use. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Grasty. Commissioner Cresswhite.
I have a question, and part of it comes from the item that we're going to see in a little bit about the rider surveys. But so we've got this program we're going to be trying to roll out with the mobility as a service, but I was struck in that rider survey about how many people were using cash and were completely unaware that we have a VC bus pass. So part of this particular service is going to revolve around people needing to use the technology. So do you know if we have done any outreach to sort of determine why, they're saying they're not aware of it, do they also not have the right technology for it, or what efforts are we making to make sure that folks are more aware of some of these digital platforms? Because in order for this to be successful, they need to be using them and not just using cash on the bus that I'm getting on right now.
Yes, of course. So yeah, that was we could talk about more in that item, but yes, that's a big area that I think that we know as, we surveyed both the Valley Express and the intercity service, and I think that's a big area of improvement is getting the word out about, the VC bus pass system, making it easier for people to ride. So I think, we have we'll be doing some campaign around that in the upcoming, I guess now, new fiscal year. So yes, we do plan to, continue to promote it, do maybe in-person outreach, certain places, so that make sure people know about the app. But as part of the MOS, it also includes open payment, and so that would make it even easier for people to pay. So you could just pay with, your credit card directly as you board the bus. And so you wouldn't necessarily need, to use the app if you didn't want to. I think it's still a great resource, and it would be done really as part of the same program. But we hope that would make it even easier to board.
So yeah, just thinking we might need to get creative in how we let people know that some of these things are available. I mean, I know that we do a lot of outreach and we try to be really creative, but I don't know if we've ever reached out directly to some of the service providers that are working with, folks that are more likely to take the bus. And so there just might be some ways that we can expand some of that outreach so that we're not spending $1 million on a program that people still keep paying with cash.
I agree. I think that's a good idea.
Commissioner Francina.
I just want to make a comment. I think the update you gave is very exciting, headed in the right direction. And you mentioned that the fixed bus route has space for 3 bikes. And I'm sure someone's tracking this. When you run out of space, in Europe, they have these bike trailers behind the bus that are just filled with bikes, and maybe someday in the not too distant future, we'll see that here. And I'm especially excited about the coordination of public transportation and bike transportation, along the lines with the buses. And again, in Europe, if you go to the train station, it's just unbelievable. Acres and acres of bicycles. And I think as the population grows and we no longer have space in the roadway, we're going to see more of that. So I'm really, really appreciative of everything you updated us on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. Actually, not so much questions, but 3 comments. First, Ms. Grassi, thank you for the great presentation. What we're talking about here are ways to really fix some of the very expensive problems that we face as a commission, as a county, as a community, and a way to do it without spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on infrastructure. I just a couple comments on this. One is, of course, one of the best things we could do to improve rideshare in the county would be to look at our HOV lanes being 3 or more rather than 2 or more. That would be a wonderful way to get people using rideshare to get to and from work in particular. And the other is, thank you for talking about Cal vans. I know there's a place for an update there. For the commissioners, one of probably the biggest bottleneck that Cal Vans has, it is such a wildly successful program. The biggest bottleneck is in getting the vans themselves. And the issue is having to move towards zero emission vehicles, and these are agricultural vans, and so the difficulty is in trying to source electric vans or convert vans to electricity. And for all the great intentions of that legislation, this would be a place where, honestly, I hope that the state could figure out a way to make an exception for vans in that type of service, because otherwise we could be looking at not being able to provide the program, and then we end up making things worse rather than better. And so just a note from my colleagues. Thank you, Ms. Grassi. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner White.
Yes, thank you, and thank you, Commissioner, for the information that you're sharing with Claire, because it's so important to get people out on their bicycles. And one thing that I kept thinking about was, do we do enough training, or do we do enough outreach to people who are riding these electric bikes that are going 40 miles an hour and running people off the streets and things like that, that really needs to be attended to, because for people who don't ride electric bikes and for people who see these kids without helmets running through the streets, it really needs some training on these people. I don't know if you want to train the parents or train the kids, but something needs to be done. Excuse me. And then the van pools, those definitely have changed people's lives. And I appreciate what was said earlier from our fellow commissioner. We're very concerned about the electric transition into van pools and how many people, when that can be done. The Guaranteed Ride program, I think, is great. Again, all this stuff is outreach. How do we get this information to people to let them know about this? I constantly talk to people about things that are going on with the commission, and I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I don't know how we could do a better job, but I just think that needs to be that information needs to be, the top of our list. And finally, that saying up there is very true. My wife notices that on Thursdays when I don't ride, that I'm not in a good mood. So thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? I think, Mr. Erickson, do you have a comment?
I have a quick comment just to first concur with Commissioner White. You're one ride away from good mood. Very true. I also ditto in my own house. And just to underscore on Claire's excellent presentation, this rideshare group in the tapestry of the different things VCTC does, I love my new job, but I do miss when I was transit director, because this field, whether it's how do we get people to find, how do we get communities to find solutions to congestion, to single occupant vehicle use, to get people to use more bicycles. I mean, this is really kind of the part of VCTC that intersects with a lot of different areas, whether it's the TDM programs, Cal vans, and I want to thank the commissioners for your attention at our strategic plan in ranking this. I'm very excited about this MOS program that we're looking at, this mobility as a service challenge, because just yesterday I was saying 12 years ago, if you told somebody that we would have in 2023 that you would get into private automobiles that people are driving around that you don't know, and you would use a conveyance called Uber or Lyft to pay that, they'd probably look at you and think, no one's going to do that. And yet, here we are with that, as a norm now. So I think the mobility landscape is changing, and I'm, again, grateful for my team and the innovative ideas we have. I know I probably drive them crazy by throwing these things out here because we have a lot of other things to do, like get grants and make sure our partner agencies are funded. But this is an exciting field, and I just want to note that and thank you all for your attention to it.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Any other comments? Commissioner White.
One last thing. I just want to thank the staff for all the work they're doing with the X Games here in Ventura, because it's really going to be a scene. And my hope, of course, is that more people use public transportation, use the trains to get there. We've done a lot of work with Caltrans. We've done a lot of work with the city of Ventura, and hopefully it'll be very safe. But I want to thank the staff that's been working with us on this project. So thank you again.
Thanks, Commissioner. All right, with that, Ms. Grasti, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We're going to move on then to item 11, which is an update on Gold Coast Transit's hydrogen fueling project, and I believe Mr. Miller, you're up.
Good morning, Commissioners. Matt Miller, Program Manager for Transit Services here at VCTC. I'm just here to introduce Vanessa Rauschenberger and Jim Beck of Gold Coast. They'll be giving a presentation on their hydrogen fueling station.
Thank you. Welcome aboard. I should have added on the last item, that was a receive and file item for Ms. Grasti. Thank you. Without objection, that is received and filed. Go ahead. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Tremblay and members of the Commission. My name is Vanessa Rauschenberger, and I'm the General Manager for Gold Coast Transit District. Thank you very much for inviting us here today. I think this is the first presentation that the district has been able to give the Commission. I took over as General Manager last year. I'm very proud and honored to work in transportation, especially here in my home county of Ventura County, where I was born and raised. And I've been with Gold Coast Transit District for almost 13 years now. Started off in planning, worked with many of the staff here in this room with VCTC and Gold Coast over the years, and I just want to say thank you again for Martin, for the partnership all these years, and many of the topics we'll talk about today are in large part because of that great partnership that we have with the Commission. So I'm excited to show here, working with our board of directors in the last year, we recently adopted a new mission statement and vision statement, serving, moving, connecting people to opportunity, one ride at a time. Our vision, we seek to revolutionize transportation in Ventura County by leading initiatives that improve the rider experience, achieve clean air, and drive economic vitality. And a couple of those exciting topics we'll talk about today. Just a quick glance at Gold Coast Transit District. Our service area includes the cities of Ojai, Oxnard, Port Hueneme, Ventura, and the County of Ventura areas between the cities. One of the things I'm very proud about is that in Ventura County, if you're a transit rider, it's a very good chance you're a Gold Coast Transit rider. Most of the ridership in our service area falls along the path between Oxnard and Ventura. It's people going to and from work, school, colleges, we're going to doctor's appointments, anywhere they need to go in our area, they're very likely using a Gold Coast bus, in addition to being able to transfer at multiple points to VCTC to reach those regional destinations. We have a fixed route fleet size, which are larger buses, 61 fixed route, and 28 paratransit, which are demand response, smaller vehicles. We have just over 200 employees and 40 contract employees. Of our annual budget this year, which was just adopted of $31 million, Vast majority of that goes to fund our operations. Gold Coast Transit's singular focus is on providing as much service as possible, as cost-effective as possible, and so we are dedicated to try to do that as efficiently as we can. And very proud to say that we were nominated to be named the best place to work in 2022 by the West Ventura County Business Alliance. Just a little bit about our organization. As I mentioned, we have several commissioners here who sit on the Gold Coast Board: Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner McQueen-Lejeune, Commissioner Levere, Commissioner McDonald, and then Council Member Rachel Lang from Ojai, who serve as our guiding board of directors. I serve as the general manager, and we have with us here today Jim Beck, who's our Director of Operations and Maintenance, Christine Fang, who's our CFO, Assistant General Manager, Cynthia Duque, who's our Director of Planning and Marketing, and then not with us today, Don Perkins and Alex Zarezzi of Human Resources and Finance. We have a fantastic team of employees. I want to just recognize the work of our operations and maintenance, service workers, customer service staff, our bus operators, our supervisors. We have a fabulous team who work together day in and day out to fulfill that mission of moving people, connecting people, serving people, and making sure that they get that mobility that they need. I'm also proud to say this year marks our 50th anniversary of service to the community. Some of you remember we were called SCAT, South Coast Area Transit, for over 50 years. I know some of you know the nickname, Scatalac. It's one of the funny things that we used to call ourselves. Many accomplishments over the years, from being one of the first agencies to convert from diesel to natural gas. In the 1990s, we launched our Access Demand Response Service for seniors and people over the age of 65. In 2014, we formed a special district after state law change regarding the way TDA funding is used in Ventura County. A special district was formed to ensure that the district has that ability to plan holistically across our member jurisdictions. And that has helped us out very well and able to make sure that we plan our routes as efficiently and then make them as attractive as possible to our riders. In 2019, we moved to our new facility in Oxnard, where we're operating today, and I know many of you have been out to visit us. I would invite anyone here who would like to come check it out to reach out to me and arrange for that. And then most recently, very excited to, and Jim will talk about today, our zero-emission transition plans and efforts to reach the ambitious goal that CARB has established for all transit agencies. I want to give just a brief update to you on how ridership is doing at Gold Coast Transit in response to COVID-19. You can see the blue line there, the little roller coaster line there, is the ridership in fiscal year 2020. The sharp drop you'll see, we dipped down to about 40–50% of ridership right when the pandemic started. And then each year, gray, yellow, green, shows each year since then. So as you can see, our green line now, we're nearly up to pre-pandemic levels of ridership. That's pretty remarkable given not every transit agency has been able to rebound as well. I think that is in large part to the picture there in the upper right corner, which is the number of youth, college students, who are now riding and able to ride the bus at no charge, thanks to the Ventura County's decision to have a youth ride-free program. That really has been a big factor in increasing ridership and restoring ridership. Youth now make up just about 30% of all of our rides on our system, and we want to keep them as lifelong riders by ensuring that we can provide as much service as possible to meet their growing needs. Two new services I want to point out that we recently launched. These were thanks to VCTC's grant awards that were awarded to us. So one of them is our new microtransit, which is a Go Now service, on-demand service, which is operating in South Oxnard with this small electric van. It's open to anyone over the age of 14, $2 per ride, open daily 7 to 7. And then our late night safe rides, which is a service open to the general public after 7 p.m. to midnight. It's open to anywhere in our service area, also $2 a ride, and must be over the age of 16 to ride. Those two services were able to launch the past year with demonstration grant funding, and we're very excited to see the ridership growth on those as a new way to use different size vehicles to support our already very popular fixed route service. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jim Beck to talk about our zero emissions transition planning, and at the end, both myself and Jim will be available for any questions that you have.
Thank you, Vanessa. Good morning, Commissioners and VCTC staff. My name's James Beck, or Jim Beck, Director of Operations and Maintenance at Gold Coast. I've been with the organization for 13 years. I started off as a mechanic and then fleet manager, and now currently as a director. So, as far as our zero emissions journey, in 2018, the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, introduced a innovative clean transit rule. A very aggressive rule for us who are trying to comply to that, and COVID did not help in this journey. So, as far as our journey for zero emissions in 2018, our board adopted a near zero emissions policy. Shortly after that, we took 14 of our New Flyer CNG buses and put a much cleaner engine, 10 times cleaner in that, which over the last 5 years has reduced emissions of hundreds of tons of CO2. Also, we purchased 9 electric sedans. I'm driving one today out here, electric Leafs. If anyone wants a great electric vehicle, all we've done in 5 years is put tires on those basically. And then we started our zero emissions rollout plan. I know you went through that process as well and came up with very similar results. And now we acquired a grant for $12.1 million, and with leveraging some CMAQ money, the project looks to be over $16 million. So in our modeling results, they came back for hydrogen as the best fuel type for us. I think battery electric came up with 88% of making our routes. 88% isn't good enough for Gold Coast. We need to make 100% of our routes on a daily basis. So when we compare battery electric to hydrogen fuel cell technology, battery electric was a good fit, but hydrogen fuel cell was the best fit. The reasons for that, much more mileage for the hydrogen fuel cell, reduction in weight, and for us, fueling speeds, it's very similar to the CNG, and for you, VCTC, filling up with diesel, very similar, and also a one-for-one replacement cost. That's a little outdated because of COVID. The price has gone up a lot on the recent hydrogen fuel cell buses. This slide is a little redundant. It says the same thing as far as hydrogen versus electric. So as far as costs go, upfront costs for hydrogen fuel cell, very, very expensive upfront. You need a hydrogen fueling station. Our station is probably going to run us about somewhere between 6 and 8 million as we go through the process. Battery electric, lower upfront costs, but as you go and put more buses into your fleet, the infrastructure charges are much more expensive. And we do have a RFP out right now for the, as part of our grant, we're working with the Center of Transportation and Environment. Matt Miller from VCTC is a part of that committee, and I appreciate his expertise in the planning area. So here's our $12.1 million. We partnered with the Center of Transportation and Environment along with New Flyer. And as we go through this, a big hurdle we had was with our unions, making sure that our unions feel safe. Most of our employees are represented either by SERU or the Teamsters, so it's very important for us to be up front with them. We got their input. I've taken probably five of the stewards up to Golden Empire Transit, who just built a hydrogen station, and showed them the technology, so we're on board there. As we work through this, we'll be training all staff at Gold Coast, bus operators, our general staff, and then, of course, the mechanics will have higher level staff. Whoops. Okay, and as far as other training, there's a few other things. You know, it's very important to have your customers, okay, a lot of people envision the Hindenburg on fire and crashing when hydrogen is mentioned, but getting the buy-in from the community, we've already done some community events, and I invite any of the commissioners out to Gold Coast, and I'll show you around and show you where the station is going to be built, and we could talk further in depth about the technology. So this is a Orange County Transit. As you see the white on the right there, the white is a hydrogen fueling nozzle, and the one in front of that is CNG. So for us and our service workers and everybody involved, the process is very similar to what they do now. On the left is kind of the footprint for what we'll be doing. The hydrogen is trucked in and put into that white container there, and then in the back there are the compressors, which compress the hydrogen up to around 5,000 pounds of pressure. So just a quick one for layman's terms as far as hydrogen. Harnessing the electrical load of the hydrogen moving through a fuel cell is what we're working with here. We don't actually burn the hydrogen. The hydrogen fuel cell is like a battery charger on an electric bus. It provides a current constantly to a smaller battery pack, but from that battery pack down to the wheels, it is just like any electric bus, electric car. Technology is the same. And here's a mock-up of the hydrogen fuel cell itself. As you can see there in the middle, there's different layers of copper, zinc, and a few other precious metals. And when you run the hydrogen through that, you get an electrical current, which charges the battery, and then in turn drives the vehicle. So one of the things I love about transit is everybody's willing to share information. I'm in contact with several fleet managers, operations managers at different agencies, and they were courageous to go and put out, and they got a lot of money though, not like us, but they were courageous and were able to put out some pilot programs. So I've got real data coming from all these agencies to help us make informed decisions as we work through this. And I just want to thank, our board members at Gold Coast. They're very engaged and very, up to date. I hope I've informed them and made them knowledgeable about the technologies. And I think you'll see as we go on here that hydrogen is going to be a viable source. Rolling blackouts. At our facility, we have a 3-megawatt generator that will power our CNG station and our hydrogen station. If there's a rolling blackout and we have our buses hooked up, we can only charge 8 buses. We cannot make rollout with 8 buses. We need at least 50 of them. So thank you, and I'm willing to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Beck and Ms. Rauschenberger. Really appreciate your presentation. Do commissioners have any questions or comments? Mr. Erickson, you have a comment?
I'm sorry, I just have a quick comment. I just wanted to thank Vanessa and Jim for coming today. As the commissioners know, we had a substantive discussion about this issue when we adopted our zero emission plan just recently. And I think this again exemplifies the nature of partnerships and how important they are in Ventura County, especially when you're looking at something as challenging as moving toward decarbonizing transportation, and how important it is for us to work together as partners, because this is expensive, it's not easy, and again, I'm just grateful for that partnership we have with Gold Coast and all our partners in this process. And just on a quick note, it's been a busy time, and Vanessa and I both came into our respective jobs running the agencies almost at the same time, but I'm grateful we had an opportunity to work together when we were both in our previous roles. So it's nice to have that relationship and experience to build on. So.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. And thank you again to both of you. I especially appreciate the slides relative to, you have to make that decision relative to hydrogen fueling versus battery electric, and the process that you went through appears to me to be very thoughtful. I think the PowerPoint has gone to all the commissioners, correct? And if not, perhaps we could have that distributed. I think those slides in particular are really well done.
We will make sure we have it distributed, this final PowerPoint to all commissioners. We'll also have it on our website, too, for the public to view.
I'd appreciate that, because it seems to be very, very thoughtfully done, so thank you. All right. Very good. Thank you. With that, we are going to go on to item 12, which is the 2023 VCTC Intercity and Valley Express Rider Survey. And I think, Ms. Kennelly, you're up.
Good morning. My name is Erin Keneally, and I'm a transit planner at VCTC. And I will be giving an update on the recently completed rider survey. The last rider survey was completed 4 years ago in the spring of 2019. And where relevant, I will highlight comparisons between the two. In April of 2023, VCTC conducted an onboard survey of both VCTC Intercity and the Valley Express services. The survey objectives included identifying travel habits such as frequency of usage, payment method, and trip purpose, determining current levels of customer satisfaction as well as preferred service improvements, and developing rider demographic profiles including race, ethnicity, English proficiency, and household income in support of our Title VI reporting requirements. Data collection was conducted in 3 ways. The survey was available online. Paper surveys were available on board each vehicle for patrons to self-administer and return to the driver. And bilingual surveyors were tasked with writing each route and offering a survey to each passenger they encountered. This effort resulted in 837 surveys between the 2 services. This nearly doubled the response rate from the 2019 survey, where 422 surveys were collected. Our goal was 450 surveys, which would have given us a 95% confidence level with a 5% margin of error. So we exceeded our goals. First, we'll talk about the VCTC Intercity Rider Survey results. Here we see some key findings. A total of 755 surveys were collected from VCTC Intercity riders. 539 were collected via Intercept, 20 were self-administered, and the balance, 196, were collected online. The survey was available in both English and Spanish. 5.6%, or 42 respondents, chose to complete the survey in Spanish. A full survey report was provided to you all, but the following slides will highlight some of the more interesting findings. While most respondents indicated that they pay their fare using cash, as Commissioner Crosswhite mentioned earlier, a third indicated that they're using the College Ride or Youth Ride Free programs, and nearly a quarter are using the VC Bus Pass app or card. We found it interesting that the number of respondents using the VC Bus Pass is nearly equally split between the app and the physical card. Respondents were asked if there are any destinations not currently served by VCTC Intercity that they would like to see served in the future. Only 118 respondents requested additional destinations. The most commonly requested destination was service to Los Angeles. This supports VCTC's plans to restore the Conejo Connection route with service to Woodland Hills in August of 2023. It's a little hard to read. VCTC will be launching a How to Ride marketing campaign this fiscal year. In support of this campaign, respondents were asked what they considered the hardest part of riding the bus. Many respondents stated that they had no difficulty navigating public transit. They're experienced riders. But those that did have problems indicated that route schedules were the most difficult part, including figuring out which route to take, reading the schedules, and making sure they were on the correct bus. VCTC is currently planning a redesign of our brochures that we hope will assist with this issue. Some of the most common other responses included difficulty with first-last mile travel, getting real-time arrival information, and making transfers. Nearly 2/3 of inner-city riders also use other public transit services in Ventura County. More than 40% use Gold Coast Transit, and nearly 1/3 use Metrolink or Amtrak. One of VCTC's goals for upcoming service changes is to improve connectivity between inner-city routes as well as other transit operators. More than half of respondents were under the age of 35. Although that was also the case in 2019, the number of respondents 18 to 24 has increased by 10.3% since then, which corresponds with the implementation of our College Ride program. We will now shift our attention to the Valley Express service. A total of 82 surveys were collected from Valley Express riders, 52 via Intercept, 9 self-administered, and 21 online. More than a quarter of respondents chose to complete the survey in Spanish. Although 82 surveys may seem like a low number, average daily ridership on the Valley Express service in April of 23 was 199 trips, which gives us an estimate of 110 unique daily riders. Based on those numbers, the 82 surveys represent a 75% response rate and gives us a confidence level of 90% with a 5% margin of error. 74 surveys were collected in 2019. In spring of 2024, Valley Express and VCTC will be adding a new route with service from Fillmore to Moore Park. This question asked respondents how likely they would be to use the new route. More than 2/3 of respondents indicated that they would likely use the service, with 28.4% indicating they would use it at least weekly. The number of respondents considered to be transit dependent, they answered, I can't drive, or I don't have a car, has decreased since 2019, from 85.2% to 76.8%. And the number of respondents using the service for convenience increased by 9.3%. Overall, the Valley Express riders tend to be a bit older than the inner city riders, with more than half of respondents over the age of 35. However, the number of respondents under 34 has increased by 4.1% since 2019, and both the under 18 and 18 to 24 demographics have increased significantly. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Keneally. Commissioner White.
Thank you. No questions, really, just a plethora of information that was received today, and I'd love to have a copy of this, obviously. But I find some of the most interesting points were that they had a hard time finding about the real-time arrival. And I find that kind of hard to believe because that is so important that when I'm standing at the bus stop, I can look at my iPhone or whatever and find out exactly when that bus is going to be there. And that's really a nice thing to have. So I think we need to push more into getting that information out to people. But thank you, Chair.
Any other comments from commissioners? Ms. Keneally, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. This item will be, without objection, received and filed as the prior item was as well. I think I failed to mention that. With that, we will go on to item 13, General Counsel reports. Mr. Mattis. Nothing to report today. All right, we'll go to agency reports, starting with SCAG. Commissioner Judge.
Thank you, Chair. I do have good news from SCAG, due not to anything I did. This was all staff's work here at VCTC. We're able to go through the REAP 2.0 grants and get VCTC $3,700,000 plus. So that was a great job on staff's part here at VCTC, and thank you for doing that. Great job. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Judge. With respect to Metrolink Southern California Regional Rail Authority, just wanted to let you know that the board did adopt a budget for next fiscal year. And if any of you need details on it, we can certainly get that to you. Let's see, LoSAN. Commissioner McDonald is not here, or Chair McDonald is not here today. Commissioner White, anything on LoSAN that we need to know about?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Coastal Rail Coordinating Council. I don't think we have either Chair McDonald or Supervisor Gorell here, so we'll skip over that one. California Association of Councils of Government, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. Ms. Peshka covered most of what's going on at CalCog as well. Certainly the good news with the extra money in the budget. I think it's important to note that in addition to there being more money, the $5 billion, that the state was granting a bit more flexibility. I certainly see this at Gold Coast as well, that, you know, we get this money for capital projects, but really what we need right now is operations and maintenance funding. And so that flexibility is key. And of course, we just continue to follow legislation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. California Van Pool Authority, Commissioner White.
Yes, thank you, sir. I think Ms. Grasty did a wonderful job in giving us information about CalVans, and I hope everybody had a chance to really listen to what was going on there, because it's an amazing organization. They're growing, and they have a lot of things to offer. So I don't have anything to add to that, only that our next meeting will be July 13th.
All right, and with that, that brings us to the end of our agenda. Any other items, Mr. Erickson?
Thank you, Immediate Past Chair Tremblay. I'll keep this brief. Thank you, Commissioners. I just wanted to wish you all a happy August or beginning of summer here, even though it's somewhat overcast. And just to make a final note, acknowledging my staff for all their work on the grants. Commissioner Judge mentioned the REAP grant. Amanda Fagan and her team did a lot of work to get that, and those are also competitive grants. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. We've got a lot of work to keep us busy, but they're great grants, and we are looking forward to it. So thank you all for your support in allowing us to achieve this. So
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. And with that, I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting to 9 a.m. Friday, September 8, 2020.